Welcome to another episode of the Defender podcast,
where facts matter.
I'm Sarah.
I'm Dolly.
And this week we'll be talking about 5 tips for early voting.
Hey friends, welcome back to another awesome week of the podcast. This is our 5th episode, our 5th week working on this podcast, and we're so excited to keep bringing this to you every week. It brings us a lot of joy, and we're getting a wonderful feedback from everyone. And last week we talked about the amendments and just knowing your ballot and understanding what is in the ballot and how to read the amendments and how to vote for what matters to you. And to continue that, we are talking about early voting, because early voting kicks off today, the day we're posting this video. Yes,
we're so excited.
Are you early voting, Sarah?
I actually am. So I got a mail-in ballot, but I plan to go in and do early voting. So I'll be voting the first weekend of early voting this coming up weekend. What about you?
So I do the same thing. I do this every election season. I like to get the mail-in ballot because I like to read it and understand it. And then it gives me the option. So I always order the mail-in ballot because if something happens, I just want to make sure that I'm protected and that I have the option of mail-in ballot. But I'm definitely early voting because, like, why not?
Yes, exactly. And I had never done a mail-in ballot before this year. So with so much talk about it and with, us going through the pandemic right now, I wanted to experience doing a mail-in ballot. So for the primaries, I actually did the mail-in ballot. I dropped it off at an early voting location. Then I went and I looked online and made sure it was received.
Yeah.
So I could go through the process myself and understand it a little bit more. But yeah, I actually do plan to go in and early vote. So I'm very excited to do that this coming up weekend.
It's so important to early vote too. And I know we'll get into this, but like the biggest thing that you just said was being able to check that your ballot was received, that your votes were counted. And you can't really do that if it's the day of, you're getting into line at 6 o'clock at night after work on that Tuesday. Like, if your vote's not counted, it's not counted. So it is really important to just factor in your early voting, having a voting plan, which is what we're going to be talking about today. So what's tip number 1?
Absolutely. So, well, first I wanted to go over, we've been talking about the numbers and how many people who have voted around the country, and it is so incredible. So I wanted to talk about that first because I'm so excited by the amount of people who have voted. So in Florida, we've had 2 million people who have already dropped off their mail-in ballots.
That's crazy.
It's huge. We haven't even had early voting starting yet. So major, like super excited about that. And then around the country, we've actually had 25 million people who have submitted their mail-in ballots around the country.
Like, that never happens.
Oh, this is, so I was reading an article, and we have actually had the amount of people who have already voted was 20% of all the people who voted in the 2016 election. So we are going to see record numbers this year. And I'm just so excited to see the turnout. I think, on both sides, I think it's just amazing.
It's really exciting.
What an amazing time to be alive, to see this much turnout and see this many people, engaged. It's incredible.
It is just so phenomenal to just see history right there in front of you.
Yes.
Like, this is what our kids are going to talk about in high school. It's just really cool to see so many people getting behind their civic duties this election cycle for whatever reason, whatever matters to them. I just think it is really cool that we're getting so many new voters, so many more voters than usual. It's just a really powerful moment, regardless of the reasons why they're doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. So like we said, so Monday starts early voting in Florida. So we thought this week would be a great opportunity for us to talk about some tips for early voting. So the first tip we wanted to bring to everyone is to fill out your sample ballot. So you can do this 2 ways. So you have your sample ballot, or you may have a mail-in ballot. You can also go online and get a sample ballot for where you live. You just put in your zip code, but you want to do that beforehand, and then that will give you the opportunity to research the candidates on your ballot, look up the amendments, so when you go in to vote, you're fully prepared. So I'm curious, Dolly, how do you typically research before you go in and submit your ballot?
Well, as I mentioned before, I really like getting the mail-in ballot. I like having it in my hands to see exactly how everything is laid out. I'm really paranoid. I feel like whatever's emailed to me, I got a sample ballot emailed to me. I get really nervous that it'll look different the day of or like whatever. So I do like having the paper ballot in my hands and seeing exactly, who's listed on it, what the amendments are, and then I'll sit there and I'll research them. Some of them are really hard. Like I don't know anything about the local judges. I don't know any of these like smaller local election officials. Like, so it is important to research every single person. And I really prefer to, if it is the judges are very important. That's something I know we'll talk about in future episodes. Just like the smaller local people who are running for
Yes.
office. But judges specifically, because those are people who are deciding people's fates, so I really like to see, their decision history, how they kind of lean in certain cases. That's really important for me personally when I'm looking at my ballot. When it comes to the local people like state house or even like my mayor or anything like that, I do like to look at their history. I like to see who's funding them. That's a big thing too. Who are they accepting donations from? Because that means that they'll owe these people when they're in office, things like that. So I just like to do as much research as possible that I possibly can. And at the end of the day, just vote with my conscience. It is really important. You don't have to vote one way all the way down the ballot. You can research the person who will represent you while they're in office. And that's the whole point of an election, right? That's the whole point. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did have a few resources because something that I do, I'll typically do my research in a few different places. So I always start with the candidate's website and their social media. So for example, like during primaries, we had the school board and it was very contentious before school started.
Yeah.
Of like, do we go back to school? Do we do virtual? So when I was voting during primaries, I wanted to see like, what are these candidates putting on social media? What message are they getting?
Smart.
And it gives you kind of like a personal look at them versus this very like cookie cutter, like what you see on their website. So I always do that. And then I always go to my papers where I know that my beliefs aligned, much in line with their views. And the editorial boards will typically give you their recommendations. They'll give you a breakdown of each candidate, of the amendments, and then they'll give you their recommendation on who to vote for. Also, if you're a part of a political party, so if you are a Democrat, if you are a Republican, there's a ton of groups out there that will give you voter recommendations, and that's a great resource as well. So if you're kind of on the fence and your views align with a certain party, you can typically go to the website for maybe the Florida Democrats or Florida Republicans, and then you can get their recommendations as well for different candidates.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a really good tips that I will now use. I never thought about looking at social media. That's actually a great point because you want to see like who these people really are day to day. So I think that's a really good idea. Cool tip, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. And because like we're so integrated with social media, and I think it really is a way to get to know candidates on a more personal level.
Oh, great idea.
So I wanted to share too, since we did talk about mail-in ballots and then deciding to go vote in early. Something I just learned this year is that you can actually fill out your mail-in ballot before you go to the polling site during early voting. But what you want to do is take a picture of your ballot, because when you go and you sign in, you're going to have to give the polling location your ballot. So if you take a picture of it before, you'll have documented like who you want to vote for, make it easier when you actually get your paper ballot. So you can fill that out. You can take a picture of it, but just know once you get to the polling location, you will have to hand over your mail-in ballot.
It's a great point. And tip number 2, which you just kind of segued into, is that early voting, which we're talking about a ton today. Obviously, go early vote. The lines right now are insane. You do not want to wait till last minute. You don't know what you'll get last minute, right? You don't know what's going to happen between now and November. You don't know if there's going to be a spike in coronavirus cases or if something will happen to you or your family. You never know.
You get sick unexpectedly. Somebody in your family is sick. You get stuck at work late. late,
You just don't
or
know.
maybe your polling place changed. I mean, check your polling place first, but maybe it changed like mine did this year. The place that it's always been, it changed to a new location. So many things can happen. It's so important to just go early vote. It gives you the flexibility to where you can go there's dozens and dozens of early voting locations in each county. So just go early vote, get it over with, and then you'll have a huge weight off your shoulders going into election day. All right. So the voting early tip 3, bring your ID. You want to make sure that you're prepared going into your polling locations. So that is something that you will have to be able to early vote. So make sure that you are prepared with that when you go into your polling location. So it's easy. Just make sure before you walk out the door, you grab your ID, and then you won't have any problems when you get to your polling site to vote.
Yes. Along with your mail-in ballot if you received one.
Yes.
Please take your mail-in ballot with you. I almost forgot it one year. A lot of polling places could look it up online, but that delays things. If there's a huge line, that's not really conducive to time. So always make sure you bring your mail-in ballot if that's what you selected, if you go to actually vote in person along with your ID. That's just another little caveat to that. Okay. Tip number 4. Bring some friends, make it fun, right? It doesn't have to be a boring, dry civic duty kind of thing. Bring some friends, encourage them to vote with you. If someone needs a ride, see if you can do a carpool. Like that's a really good idea as well. Try to bring as many people as you can, because regardless of how they're voting, make them vote, right? It's just such an important and powerful civic duty. So more the merrier.
Bringing friends with you to vote, Dolly? Do you have any plans or to encourage your friends and family to go vote early?
Yes. So actually, we have some mutual friends who have never voted ever in their entire lives. And this is the first election that they're going to be voting, which is just so extraordinary.
I love that.
We wore them down. Finally, got them to register on time. And so we'll be bringing them to the polls. Also, I work at a center for girls, and we have a couple 18-year-olds, and I've worked it out with the center that we're going to grab a van and bring those girls who can vote, who are interested in voting, to the polls on election day so they can vote as well for the first time as a teen in high school, which is pretty awesome too.
You're giving me chills.
Yeah. So it's going to be really cool. I love election day. I get very patriotic. I think it's just a fun time. It doesn't have to be dry and boring, so just get as many people as you can out there.
Something exciting that we're looking forward to. And so my husband is he's a coach. He coaches football. So he coaches high school kids, but he'll typically still coach them as they go into college. So he also has a lot of first-time voters. So we're doing the same thing where everybody meet at our house on this time, and we're all going to the polls together.
All gonna go.
So
Perfect.
It's so exciting. And I remember my first time voting. So if you do know any first-time voters, make sure you reach out and make it something fun where
take their picture, have a little fun with it. That's really neat. Yeah,
absolutely. So tip 5, we are still in the middle of a pandemic. So our tip 5 is to be safe. And polling places are taking a lot of extra precautions to keep people safe. So, go in, you can be comfortable, know that things are being sanitized, know that they're doing things like one-time use items like pins, and there are people that are sanitation specialists at each polling location. So you can go in and be comfortable and know that there are extra precautions that are being taken, but there's things that you can do as well. Make sure you bring your mask. Also, make sure you bring some hand sanitizer or some wipes. So if you want to wipe down the tables before you vote, there are little things that you can do to make sure that you're staying safe, make sure that you're keeping others in your community safe by keeping the social distancing and all those things that we know that we should still be doing during this COVID pandemic.
Yeah, I read somewhere that the risk of going to your polling place is on level to going to the grocery store. You're only going to be there for a few minutes. You're going to be in line for a while, but you'll have the 6 feet distance. Make sure to just pay attention to that. And then once you get inside, it's pretty quick, relatively quick. And they want it to be quick because they don't want a ton of people inside. They want to get people out. So it's actually not too bad voting in person right now. Of course, if you have pre-existing conditions, do that mail-in ballot. Make sure that you check that your vote was counted. But if you can vote in person, go do it because it's quick and easy, and you'll know that your vote is counted because you can check afterwards. So
Yeah, absolutely. And that's some of the benefit of going early is that there are typically shorter wait lines. So I always try to go early. And the cool thing this year too is that a lot of sports complexes, so like we're in Tampa, so we have Raymond James, so where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers play, they're actually turning that into an early voting site. Also,
very cool.
Yeah, so also where the Tampa Bay Lightning play, they're turning that into an early voting location. So there's some cool places too that you can go vote. You get to go inside, see the different stadiums. So that's another way to just make your early voting fun this year.
Well, I'm in Safety Harbor. I have a library. So that is cool.
I mean, I'll probably go to the library too, but if you do have time and you can go a little bit out of your way. There are some cool early voting locations that you can go to.
Awesome. And as always, please share your pictures with us. Like, have fun with it. Take pictures of you voting with your little sticker. Be proud of the civic duty that you just performed, right? And send it in to us. We'd love to feature you on our sites, on our social media, just sharing the love, the voting love. So, have fun with it at the end of the day.
Yeah, go on social media and brag, but then send us your pictures too, so we can brag on you too. We're so excited for this time of year, and it is something that it should be exciting. And, we want to make sure that the people who do support us and do follow us, that, we're giving you guys some love too for early voting and voting on, even if you do go on November 3rd, we want to make sure that we give you some love for doing that. So definitely send us your pictures. And so we had a few more additional notes for you. So just some tips when you go into early vote. If you go into vote and your name is not on the voter roll, you can fill out a provisional ballot. So that is something that if there is any type of clerical error or you do have an issue when you can go in, you can do a provisional ballot, but just make sure that you follow up with your supervisor of elections afterwards, because there's typically something else that they'll need from you. So fill out your provisional ballot, but then reach out to your local supervisor of election and then just fix whatever clerical issue that there may be.
Again, why you need to go early vote.
Yes. Yes. Find out if there's any issues beforehand. Also, if you expect long lines, like we are seeing people waiting 3 or 4 hours, check with your friends maybe that have voted where you plan to vote, or if you see maybe from your news station that there are long lines. Bring a chair, bring some snacks, bring a book. It's worth it. I mean, if however long you need to wait, definitely wait. And as long as you are in line before the polling place closes, you can vote. So that's something important, even on general election day too, is as long as you're in line before the polling place closes,
you're good.
Yep.
Yeah. So very good. All right. Well, I'm super pumped and excited for early voting. Again, it launches the day we're posting this video. That is October 19th, right? So get out there, make your voting plan, call your friends and family, just get it done, right?
Get out and vote.
Just get out and vote. Let us stop being annoying.
We will annoy you every day to go out and early vote until election day. So expect lots of spamming from Ballot Defenders.
Our job, right?
Yes.
Love it. Well, that's it for us today. We are so excited to be seeing you again, and we'll see you next week on next Monday's episode, right?
Yes.
All right.
You guys.